She yells, "I'm gonna effing kill you," as the cop attempts to de-escalate. Like, she's shouting that she's gonna stab somebody. What was he supposed to do? Get out of the van and ask Ma'Khia Bryant about the trouble she's experiencing in her life? Or, stop her from stabbing the other girl in the neck? All of this is ridiculous on its face. Now, the way that we know this is ridiculous on its face is because not only do we have the original body cam angle on the Ma'Khia Bryant shooting, in which you can see clearly Ma'Khia Bryant charging at this other girl who is pinned against a car and raising a butcher knife to stab her. We now have another angle on the Ma'Khia Bryant shooting. This angle shows that Ma'Khia Bryant is lunging at another woman with a knife, and people are shouting about it. People are here's the video. Okay, she's shouting that she's going to stab somebody. She yells, "I'm going to effing kill you," as the cop attempts to de-escalate. Like, what? Is there possibly better evidence that the cop did the right thing here? Okay, but according to the media, remember, the cop can do the right thing, and it doesn't matter because every bad thing in America that happens, if it happens to a black person, is an element of systemic racism. Right? Everything is attributable to the system because the goal here is not to make life better for people. The goal here is to tear down the systems. The same systems, by the way, that have provided for more freedom and more security in the past half century than black people have anywhere else on planet Earth. America is an incredible place for black people to live. It is better than virtually all other places on planet Earth. By polling data, America is one of the least racist countries on Earth. Black household income is higher in the United States than it is anywhere else on planet Earth. This notion that America is some sort of hellscape for black Americans compared with other countries on Earth is completely evidence-free. But that is the proposal, that all of America's institutions are terrible, and that every bad thing that happens to a black person, or for which a black person is responsible, is attributable generally to the system at large. As I talked about a little bit earlier this week, this is the soft bigotry of low expectations. It's not. It's just the hard bigotry of no expectations. In a free country where the law applies, black people apparently have no agency at all and are not to be held responsible for their actions in any way, which is why you end up with articles in the Washington Post talking about she didn't even have a chance to live her life. This is all about the system. Ma'Khia Bryant beams at her mother in a TikTok clip, then throws her arms around her neck. As Beyonce's Dance for You plays in the background, the team lip syncs the lyrics, "I'm going to take this time to show you how much you mean to me because you are all I need." It's an intimate moment between mother and daughter who are working hard to reunite after Bryant was placed in foster care, family members said. They had a close bond, said Don Bryant, a cousin of Ma'Khia's mother. Ma'Khia was just an all-around good person. On Tuesday, 16-year-old Bryant was fatally shot by a Columbus police officer responding to a call for help at her foster home in the city's southeast. Body camera footage released by police shows Bryant swinging what appears to be a knife at two people during an altercation outside the property before an officer arrives and fires 4 shots at her torso. On Thursday, family members struggled to make sense of the killing, at least the third fatal shooting by Columbus police this year. Okay, but how many of those were justified? Do we have the details on any of those? Because this one was a justified shoot. Don Bryant said he had a hard time recognizing the teen seen in the police video lunging at others. He doesn't condone any violence, but called the officer's decision to open fire disproportionate. There are other disengagement techniques police could have used here, said Bryant, who has served on the Mansfield, Ohio City Council. I'm a supporter of police as former city councilor. I understood their moves, their tactics, what they do. I just don't understand what happened here. You don't understand what happened here? I mean, it seems pretty clear what happened here since it's, on tape from several different angles. The entire media coverage here is angled toward ignoring the actual circumstances of the case. Officials identified the officer who fired the shots as Nicholas Reardon and said he had been taken off street duty while the investigation proceeds. Reardon, 23, appears to be the son of a retired Columbus police sergeant named Ted Reardon, an Air Force veteran and longtime basic training instructor at the department's training academy. When Ted Reardon retired last year, the department posted a tribute video. Nicholas Reardon was a high school wrestler at Columbus's Bishop Watterson High School. The wrestling team's Twitter feed showed him posing with his dad as a senior in 2016. He joined the Columbus PD in December 2019. The shooting immediately ignited debate about whether deadly force was warranted. Okay, well, that debate ignited because the Biden administration jumped on this to suggest that the shooting was wrong, and again, emblematic of white systemic racism. But I'll tell you what it really was emblematic of, more than anything else. How many of these cases are parents really deeply involved with the people who end up shot by the police? Seriously, are we allowed to ask that question? Because we have on tape Ma'Khia Bryant's mother giving tearful interviews. But Ma'Khia Bryant was in a foster home when she attacked another girl with a knife. Where was Ma'Khia Bryant's mother then? Here's Ma'Khia Bryant's mother on CNN.
My heart is really broken right now because I miss my baby, to be honest. I miss already. And it's really hard for me. I haven't eaten. And I can't eat because I miss my baby. I had a beautiful baby. She was taken from me.
Okay, your heart goes out for the mother. At the same time, where was mom? Ma'Khia Bryant was in a foster home. Where was mom? Adam Toledo was shot in Chicago. Again, a justified shooting. It was treated by the media as an unjustified shooting, the Adam Toledo shooting. Where were Adam Toledo's parents? Adam Toledo had been missing for 2 nights. He's a 13-year-old boy on the streets. He had joined the Latin Kings, which is a gang in Chicago. He just gotten a tattoo to that effect, and he was shooting weaponry at cars. Where were his parents? You want to talk about alleviating problems? Why don't we start with some of the roots of the problems rather than blaming the people who are charged with basically putting a Band-Aid on criminality by attempting to stop the criminals? But again, you can't talk about that, because if you talk about that, then it devolves to personal responsibility. And the left has suggested that black people have no agency in America. It is the hard bigotry of no expectations. If there is a bad situation, then we're just supposed to expect that there will be widespread riots. If there is a black girl who tries to stab another black girl with a knife, she has no responsibility for those actions. Nor do we care. Only if the cop shows up to stop it do we care, because that's emblematic of systemic racism. This is what Ibram Kendi says. It's Ibram Kendi, who is just a grifter and a race baiter and a person with terrible, awful, horrible ideas. He's a tyrant. Here he is on CNN with Breonna Keeler talking about how the cops should never have done this.
When I look at that video, I ask myself, if that would have been a 16-year-old white girl in a wealthy suburban neighborhood, would the police officer have sought to disarm this girl? Would the police officer sought to talk her down? Would the police officer would have used lethal force? And it's hard for me to believe that that would have happened. It's hard to me to believe that that officer would not have responded differently for a different girl in a different community.
Ibram Kendi says a few things there. One, he suggests that if the police officers showed up, they would try to talk down a white girl who was doing this to another white girl in an upper income neighborhood. Okay, now notice how he adds in upper income neighborhood. This wasn't an upper income neighborhood, right? This is a pretty obviously lower income neighborhood. The class gap does matter here a little bit, which I'll explain in a second. But the notion that a police officer even would have had time to talk to Ma'Khia Bryant belies the facts. There's a grand total between the time the officer arrives. He steps out of his car. He says, "What's going on?" Between that time and the shoot is 9 seconds. 9 seconds. You think what was he supposed to do? Get out of the van and ask Ma'Khia Bryant about the troubles she's experiencing in her life? Or, stop her from stabbing the other girl in the neck? Under all circumstances, if a cop shows up and somebody is wielding a knife at another person about to stab them, the cop will shoot them. You think the cop went through the cop's head? Well, she's black, got to take her down. No evidence to that effect at all. So Ibram Kendi is just a liar, and he is slandering that police officer as a racist. Right, so that is number one. Number two, the broader question that Ibram Kendi is asking is wrong. The question is not, would a police officer have shot an upper-income white person doing this to another upper-income white person? The answer is pretty obviously yes, again, because you have a 9-second gap in which to make the decision to stop somebody trying to stab the other person. The real question is, in what neighborhoods are these crimes tending to take place? And what sort of cultural decisions have to be made to stop those crimes from taking place in the first place? Because the underlying lie that is being told is that everyone is equally likely to try to stab each other with a knife, and this is untrue. This is how you come up with the idiocy from the left, that if the police officers shoot a disproportionate number of black suspects, this is because the police are racist, as opposed to looking at the underlying levels of criminal activity. That doesn't mean that race has anything to do with your criminal level of activity. It does mean that crime is not equally distributed per capita among the races. White people commit more crimes than Asian people per capita. Hispanic people commit more crimes than than white people and Asian people per capita, and black folks commit more violent crimes per capita than Hispanic folks and white folks and Asian folks. Okay, those are just basic stats. That's not racist. And that has nothing to say about race as the causative factor, because race isn't the causative factor. But because Ibram Kendi thinks that race is always the causative factor, he believes that no matter what other explanatory causal factors are there, ranging from single motherhood to poverty to ingrained generations of deep-seated racism going back several generations, right? This is the case that Thomas Sowell makes. He says there are higher levels of violent crime in the black community because there's sort of embedded codes of honor from the American South there and a systemic lack of policing for decades that led to higher rates of crime in the black community over the course of a century. Okay, but instead of going there, he just goes to, it must be that the white police officer is a racist and it's his implicit bias, and if this had been a white person, he wouldn't have shot them. That is shallow. It's ridiculous. And of course, it is racist because it says that all white police officers are implicitly biased, and any police officer who shoots a black suspect about to kill somebody is in fact a racist. The battle for the culture is heating up. We here at the Daily Wire are making some big moves. So be sure to like, subscribe, ring that bell, because you're not going to want to miss a single moment.